stay tuned to find out how to do this beautiful cosmos flower step by step. Okay, so I've got some beautiful cosmos in my garden and we're going to tackle drawing one of these out and painting it so that you get a better idea of how to approach cosmos. So if I start with a nice big circle, if I angle the flower this way, I can see less this side, more that side. So I'm going to pop the centre of that flower just a little bit further this way, and then I can start to pop these petals in. I'll pop a photograph up of the flower so you can see that closer on the screen. It's easier to do flowers bigger than smaller, so just bear that in mind when you're drawing out on the picture, that actually small isn't the easiest thing to paint. So I'm just following them around like I would do a clock face really, and just placing them where I think they should be. And we've got a little stem. Coming down like that. So I've got a really pretty flower there to tackle. I'm going to pop that down and go through the colours. I've kept it quite simple. I've kept it to 3 colours. I'm going to pop about half a teaspoon of water into a pea-sized blob of paint. Let me just pop my masking fluid on before, so this is drying whilst I'm mixing these colours up. So there's only a tiny bit of masking that I want to do, and I'm using a knitting needle to do it because I find this is the easiest thing. I want these little bits, stamen bits on the centre, the flicky out bits. So I'm just going to come round, dipping back into the pot. I've used the blue masking fluid so you can see these nice and clearly. And this is going to preserve the white of the paper when we come to do the petals and make those little stamen bits. The other thing that I can do is add some cosmos leaves. So I haven't got any leaves here, but they're like little grasses that come out from the bottom of the stem. You can take a photo of some cosmos in the garden and then you can see exactly how it looks. So we're just going to have a few of these at the bottom. Doesn't necessarily matter if they go blobby at that little bit at the bottom. You just want to get them coming angled out from the bottom of that stem. Get the lid back on your masking fluid straight away, then it just wipes off the knitting needle. Of all the years I've been doing it, the knitting needle is by far the best tool to apply it. In this scenario anyway. So I've got round number 10, just check it's clean. I'm going to go into the yellow. Oh, and it's not clean. Hopefully clean enough. Have a little look. That's not bad. You must always check your brushes are clean. I've just been using it on a moonlight scene and it's still got a bit of that Prussian blue in, I think. This one is Permanent Rose. It's a favourite colour of mine. You want these colours to be consistent. This one's a Prussian blue actually, and that's going to make some beautiful greens. So I've got those 3 colours. Okay, I'm just going to dry this masking fluid off and then we'll start with the first wash. Okay, so that's nicely dry, so I'm going to come in now with my first wash. I'm going to avoid the flower head. So this is about getting the background wash on. So I'm going to sweep round as close as I can to the petals. Got some blue just coming off the side of the block there. I'm just going to rub that off. Some paint must have run down on the last picture. That's a layer of water on there. And I just need to get a little bit more into these petals. So just in between. There's a little bit of that Prussian blue still on my brush. At least you'll see where I'm going. There's going to be a lot of green in the background, so it doesn't actually matter. Okay, so I've come around the edge of those petals. I'm going to start with the gamboge yellow. And I want you to angle this in a way of foliage growing up. So we're just thinking this is background foliage. It's growing up, arching outwards, stroke it outwards. And you want plenty of green in here. So plenty of yellow, because yellow and blue make green. We're going to bring the yellow in. I'm using Saunders Waterford paper. It's a cotton paper, so it gives you plenty of time. It's nice and wet. Leave a little bit of light towards the top. If I just dab into the rose a little bit, I'm just going to flow some of that in through. It's more, if anything, for a bit of a synergy in the picture. I like a bit of this rose to come through at this stage. It'll add some natural tones in there. Okay, let's see how this Prussian blue mixes. It's okay. So if you come on and it looks too strong, then what I want you to do is take a little bit of that Prussian blue into the yellow so that you make a green, because Prussian blue, depending on what manufacturer it is, can be quite bold. What you want is a green to be mixed on the paper. If it comes on and it looks too blue, then it's too blue. So if I use a little, I'll use a little bit of both of these. You can do the same if you want to. This is just giving us a nice, subtle, soft background, which is indicative foliage in the background, really. Them lovely strokes of things growing upwards and outwards. It'll be nice and soft. Try and get as close to the petals as you can, because this helps make the petal shape, especially with a lighter cosmos flower. I'll take a little bit of this, the darker Prussian blue in now. especially towards the bottom, because that's going to ground everything. Such beautiful colours. If you don't mess with them too much and you just apply it and let the watercolour, have the confidence to let the watercolour do its own thing. The beautiful colours. So I'm going to take a little bit of this Prussian blue in, especially around the flower. Just in places. You don't have to outline, you don't want to outline, but you just want to get it in places so you get this beautiful, subtle pop out of the flower. Those little bits of dark make all the difference. Okay, so I'm going to dry that one off now. Okay, so that's nicely dry. And what I'm going to do is twizzle round this way. So I find it easier to paint to a point painting downwards. I'm going to take this mix of the Prussian blue and the yellow and just start to bring on some cosmos leaves. So sticking to that same bottom corner, and this is going to layer up to give me some dark ones and some light ones. I'm using around number 6, and then I'm going to go down to a long thin brush, which is a rigger, and it's just building these up into this corner. You want to go different angles, different lengths. So I'm going to load the brush up. I rest on my little finger. And then these ones are going to be much finer. So I've started with the thicker ones, and then I'm bringing out the finer ones. Just get to the best angle you can to paint downwards. Painting down to a point is much easier than painting up to a point. Just layer these up. And a tiny bit more yellow. Don't try and skimp on the paint. If you haven't got enough, then pop more in. You don't want it to become scratchy. Take a bit more of that blue in. You just have to keep reloading your brush. See this one building up in this corner. You don't necessarily need lots of them to connect, but you do need a few thicker ones to hold it together. And then we can do the stem. I shall pick up a number 6. Use whichever brush you're comfortable with. And again, I want to be able to see the tip of the brush towards the top. Makes it easier for me to get a nice line. I can see that edge. Then if I turn it round this way, tip of the brush towards the top, I can see that top edge. I'm just going to flow that down into those stems, into those leaves. And then if I pick up a tiny bit of the Prussian blue, and I'm just going to choose one side, that's going to be the side that's darker. And I'm just touching that edge. And whilst it's still wet, it's going to flow in, create that really nice cylindrical feel. There we go. So I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry now. I'm going to start to work into the petals. I'm going to do alternate petals. So when you're doing this, you can do one petal at a time. Because I'm quite used to doing this, I can do several petals at a time. So I'm just going to wet these ones ready. I've got my round number 6. I've wet them with my round number 10. I've got my round number 6. And I'm going to come in with the rose. Now it's quite nice if you can leave a little bit of light on each one. So we're going to leave a little bit of the white of the paper on each one. Remember, you can do one at a time. It's only because I know that I'm quite quick at this that I can do this. When you get used to doing flowers, you have a bit of a, what I would call a petal production line. You can just whiz around them. Make sure you're getting right the way into where the masking fluid is. So you've just got to make sure you're catching into that area so that you're going to have that really nice edge that you want there. So you can see they're softening in nicely. If I take a dab of the Prussian blue and a dab of the rose, I'm going to make a little bit of a purple. And that purple can be shadow. So I'm going to pop a little bit of that in. So it's quite nice around the centre. If you've got any petals overlapping or any natural folds, it's quite nice as well. So where you might be overlapping a petal or have a little bit of a fold, you're going to pop a little bit of a shadow in. There's a little bit of an overlap there, look. I'll get that one there. Okay, and then you need to dry these 4 off before doing the next 4 so that they form a nice edge. Okay, so they're nicely dry, so we're going to do the same on the other 4 petals now. So I'm going to wet them all with my round number 10. Remember, you can do one at a time. You don't need to do it in a 4. Now I'm going to pick up my round number 6 and come on with the rose. So now I've got a nice edge formed from the previous petal. Remember to try and leave a little bit of light somewhere in the centre. I'm just going to fill in each of these petals, coming right the way up to the masking fluid again. So you're forming that nice edge on the head of the flower as well. Little bit of light, and then that same purple mix going to use to just create a little bit of shadow. A dab of each of the Prussian blue. You're just going to pop that in where there might be a fold or an overlap or around the centre. With this sort of thing, less is more. You've got beautiful light in this flower. You don't want to lose it. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so I've dried that off, and then with the pads of those first two fingers, I've rubbed the masking fluid off like this. There's very little masking fluid on there, so it's quite easy to rub that off, and then just brushed it off the paper, so it is out of the way. I've just got the finishing touches now to pop on. So I'm using my round number 6. I'm taking in a little bit of water. I've got some neat Gamboge yellow here. I'm just going to start to place that in. So I'm going to try to get over a lot of those white lines. But I don't mind if I miss a few. It just stands really nicely out. And then whilst that is settling, I'm going to use that same Gamboge mix over these little bits of leaves that are highlighted. So you're just painting loosely over. It doesn't matter if you go further than the line, because it will still hold together as leaves for the cosmos. So you don't have to be too precise at the bottom. Just paint as if you were flowing along those lines. You can leave a little bit of white as well. Now, if you have any particular blobby bits with masking fluid, the way to fix that is to pick up a little bit of your green and just dab that in. I've got a few blobby bits here, and that just at the bottom of those masking fluid bits will just send it back and within. You can even take up a little bit of the Prussian blue and just blob that in. Basically, anything darker will mask a little bit of those blobby bits down there. So I rinse my brush out. I need a little bit of this purple mix. So if I take the Prussian blue and a bit of the rose, I'm going to dab it off onto the kitchen towel. And then I need to choose a shadowed side. Now, because I chose that as the shadowed side, I'm going to choose this side again as the shadowed side. So I'm just dabbing in a little bit of that purple colour as shadow. Not a lot, just a little bit. If I take some of the rose into a separate well and just add a little bit of water, get my tester bit, you can see the consistency difference. It's waterier. I'm going to just paint some creases onto the petals. So if I bring this flower back now, you can see the crease lines, and that's what we're going to paint now. So it just needs to be a light colour, and I'm just going to vary the pressure applied with the brush. So this is my round number 6, and you've got to follow the petal line. So it's no good going straight if the petal curves. You've got to curve with the petal. It's just the key to this is just not to have it too strong. I'm just varying the pressure and curving to the petal. Just following the flow. in the centre, if you want to add a little bit more detail, once that is dry, if you just dab into the yellow, you can just dot on a few little bits of the yellow. And I'll just give it a little bit more detail. So there we go. So this is the simplest of a cosmos flower, really. Just one single flower going through a wet in wet wash background, how to apply the masking fluid, how to complete the petals, and how to create a lovely centre. There's an additional wow factor at the end. What you can do if you want to see the creation of sunlight on there is to create some hard shadow. So what I've got here is the permanent rose mix that we've used on the petals. And if I just think, well, this is the dark side, so the shadow would, the light would come that way, the dark side would be here. And if I just bring a little bit of shadow just here, and a little bit of harder shadow down the edge of these petals where they overlap, it will just look like it's caught the sunlight. It's a beautiful technique. Just a little bit here and there on this side. And it gives it a much more sunlight effect there. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share for me. I'll pop you another tutorial just here. See you next time.